Welcome, everybody. My name is Allison Schmidt, and I am the Program Manager for E4L Berkshire County and a member of the DLE Culture Chat Committee, and I'm going to be today's program moderator. We're going to be doing things a little differently today, and our guest speaker, Elizabeth Heller, is going to start the program by guiding us through a breathing exercise to clear our focus and set the atmosphere for the next 60 minutes. So, Elizabeth, if you're ready to take it away.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm just going to invite you to get comfortable. So you may be standing, you may be sitting, you may be in a space where you can lie down. If you want to, go ahead and choose that. And just take a moment to just notice where you are, how you've chosen to sit. And just for 1 second, notice that we have all just arrived here from something going on in our day. So depending on what time zone you're in, it may be a lot, it may be a little. And can you just offer yourself the gift of actually being where you have arrived, being in this 1 hour right here together? So that's what you can just notice for a moment. And if you're comfortable, close your eyes. If your legs are crossed, uncross your legs. It's more calming for your nervous system. Feet on the floor if you're sitting. And we're going to just breathe in and out through the nose slowly. So breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. And now keep going, letting yourself breathe in and out as you feel like, maybe 5 more times. So wherever you are, when you're ready to inhale again, go ahead and take a big breath in through your nose. And a big breath out through your nose. And then just pause for another couple seconds and just notice your body. Notice if there's any difference you made. There's no right or wrong. That doesn't mean you have to have made a difference. Just notice whatever's there. And then if your eyes are closed, just look down slowly in your space so you can just slowly come back into your space. And here we are.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I hope everybody is feeling calm and ready to learn about mindfulness. It's exciting to see so many faces, so many people who are joining for the first time. Welcome, everyone. The DLE Culture Chat is a business-oriented open forum that examines changes and challenges in today's workplace. In just 60 minutes, we aim to engage multiple perspectives through a moderated forum that promotes respectful conversation about vital topics and actionable takeaways. Our goal is to help you grow what you know and who you know in a welcoming, supportive, professional environment. The sustained sponsorship of Dulye & Company Workspace Consultancy enables Culture Chat programs to be free. We have an impressive blend of DLE members and newcomers joining from diverse regions, industries, and positions. Many of you have provided questions in advance for today's program, so thank you for that. Let's take 15 seconds to connect. Can everybody type in the chat box your name, your company, your title, and your location from where you're joining? And we also want to use this opportunity to broaden your network. So if you see anybody on the list that you say, oh, I'm really interested in financial advising in Berkshire County, I might reach out to Lauren and say, hey, why don't we connect on LinkedIn? So please feel free to do that. All right. Clegg, can we jump to slide 2? Awesome. So let me quickly review some ground rules. For now, can everybody please stay on mute? When we get the conversation going, remember to unmute when you're called on or you have a question. That can go in the chat box. Please respect the diversity of opinions aired today. We want everybody to contribute and network, which is why we've incorporated breakouts at the second half of the session. And finally, I'd like to thank our volunteers of the Culture Chat Planning Committee who are the producers of today's program. First, we have Khaled Rocha from Boston. He is a financial advisor and portfolio advisor with Merrill Lynch Wealth Management. Crystal Blake, information technology manager at General Dynamics Mission Systems in Pittsfield. Michelle Lopez, the executive director at the Berkshire Immigrant Center in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Aaliyah Marrow, filmmaker at ASM Productions in Durham, North Carolina. And Kate Abbott, a freelance writer and editor, owner of By the Way Berkshires in Williamstown, Massachusetts. All right. And let's jump to our third slide. Awesome. And now I want to introduce our guest speaker, Elizabeth Heller, who will provide us exercises and tips for simmering mental distractions that hinder focus and mindfulness. Elizabeth Heller is a mindfulness and journaling expert, best-selling children's author, podcast host, mom, and super journaler. She is the creator of the Kids Super Journal activity book coming this month, so keep an eye out for that, and helps adults empower kids to self-manage life's challenges and embrace life's joys with a research-backed strategy that combines mindfulness, movement, and journaling. Elizabeth is an ERYT 200 yoga teacher with an additional 200 hours of intensive training in mindfulness, therapeutic and trauma-informed yoga, meditation, and journal writing. She has authored and co-authored 8 books and has also worked as a broadcast journalist and PR professional. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with everybody.
And we wanted to do a little advanced research for this session. So our latest 10-second poll asks, do you feel that you are a productive multitasker? And here's what we learned. Can we jump to the next slide? Awesome. So clearly today's topic is right on because most people answered, no, I don't feel like I am a productive multitasker. So let's jump right in. To get started, I want to remind you all that this is a space for everybody to come as they are. Everyone has different levels of comfort in sharing. Anything you put in the chat or say in breakout groups will be contained to just this meeting. Only this main room conversation will be recorded. So if everybody can give me a thumbs up that they're ready to get started with those ground rules, I am going to ask everybody to write one word in the chat about how you're feeling right now. How would you describe how you're feeling right now? Fine, energized, anxious, hungry, deadlines, stressed, many things to do, overwhelmed, curious and excited, overwhelmed, busy. So we have a good mix of emotions, and everybody's coming here feeling differently, and that is okay. And Elizabeth is going to tell us more why. So Elizabeth, why are we sharing that? Why are we asking them to share that one word description of how they're feeling?
Yeah, thanks, Allison. So I'm going to just start with the definition of mindfulness. Mindfulness just means bringing your awareness to the present moment on purpose without judgment. So pausing for even 10 seconds to just notice how you're feeling is a mindfulness practice. And you can't, I don't know anyway how to do this, but I don't know how to make healthy choices, know what I need, if in fact I can't be aware of what I'm feeling in a particular moment. So I didn't see who was hungry, but if you're hungry, go get something to eat so you can focus, right? Give yourself what you need based on what you just noticed about yourself. So, taking that into the workspace to be productive at work and really in your life, it needs to start with loving yourself enough to just pause for 10 seconds and say, what am I feeling right now? And just notice. So that's why it's really the beginning. It's the seed of mindfulness.
Thank you. So how does that mindfulness connect to multitasking or not multitasking?
Yeah. So again, mindfulness means paying attention on purpose to the present moment without judgment. And, mindfulness is a thing out there in the world, and you probably have heard it a lot. I'm wondering how many people actually heard the actual definition of what that means. But being present in the moment is calming for your nervous system. So the part of the brain that wants to search out, any kind of danger, which is what our brains are designed to do, spends a lot of time in the past trying to fix things and figure out what went wrong, and a lot of time in the non-existent future, creating scenarios to practice so that if they ever happen, the lion ever chases you, you'll be ready. But those things just usually don't happen in the future, and you can't change the past. So just bringing yourself really to the present moment is so key. And that is actually what monotasking is. Mono one, doing one thing at a time, noticing one thing at a time, is calming for your nervous system. And we'll get into it more, but it makes you more productive and frankly, healthier and happier.
Awesome. Well, then let's, jump right into that. Tell us more about this myth of multitasking and why we should be doing monotasking.
Okay, well, I don't like the word should, but maybe there'll be things to convince you all that maybe there are ways that you can incorporate this to help you be healthier. And I'm just going to say this because I think it's hilarious that I'm actually doing this presentation, because there was no place to put my answer, which is I know I can't multitask and I am so good at it. I am so good at multitasking. You should see me go. I'm amazing. And I know it's not true. So I'm curious how many people out there are like, yeah, I'm here. This is so cool. And they're thinking in the back of their mind, like 25 things that they've got to do. And maybe even right now, who's typing into their email, I'm sure there's somebody, right? So it's, starting there and being aware of that is kind of a really important thing. And I'm aware of that a lot in my life. So, it's also part of our culture. There was a time, hopefully not anymore, but there was a time when that was, a hiring criteria. You must be able to multitask. Thankfully, we've got science and we've come a little bit farther, but I think it is still a challenge in the workplace to be okay with doing one thing at a time. So I just want to, in starting there, get into just a little bit of the science. This is not a science presentation, but it's important to know, and this has been, it's out there in the New York Times, Forbes magazine, not just scientific journals. It's, the myth of multitasking is a thing. Two things, if you don't hear anything else today: the human brain is not designed to multitask, right? So now there's probably some brain out there that maybe is the exception, but it's probably not yours. I know it's not mine, right? So we are not designed to do it. So why are we spending, there's a good question to sit with sometime. Like, why are we spending so much time trying to do that? And the other thing that is most important is that it's not healthy. It is unhealthy for your whole system to constantly be trying to move from one thing to the other, which in fact is what multitasking is. Multitasking is just switching from one thing to the other super fast. So when you try to do two things at once, like I said, checking your email while you're on this program, you're actually just switching tasks, and it comes at a huge cost. It costs you time and it costs you energy. And that there's mental energy, physical energy, emotional energy. It's not just, mental or, having one of those things. It's all of those things. It's very, very challenging for the system. And it lights up your nervous system because it's not, your system is trying to figure out what to do. And then that's also a drain, right? So there's a lot that happens. When you switch, so when you're switching from one task to another, sometimes what happens, or what scientists like to call something called attention residue, which is you've moved to one task, but your mind is still in another one. And that, again, I don't know, think about this. How many of you out there have been in your car driving to somewhere and suddenly you arrive at the somewhere, but you don't really remember how you got there? That's what attention residue is. It's you're doing this, but you're somewhere else. So not healthy, can be a little bit dangerous too, depending on what you're doing. And I really like this. There's a neuroscientist, a cognitive neuroscientist, Dr. Shahar Yosef from UC Berkeley, and he studied this whole thing. And he calls that process, the result of the process of switching tasks, switching tax, TAX, so that what happens is you end up paying time and energy every time you do that. So if you think of the analogy of, like, most of us probably don't absolutely love paying our actual taxes. We'd rather keep that in the bank. When you're multitasking, can you just tell yourself, you know what, I'm spending tax energy, tax, productivity that I want to keep in my inner bank, right? And you have a choice with that, unlike regular tax paying. And I like this quote he has. He said, so for that reason, because you're paying this tax, it's almost always more efficient to monotask, focus on one thing and move on when you're done, so you don't pay unnecessary switching taxes. I really like that.
So Elizabeth,
Yeah.
that all makes so much sense. That, even when you're like, you're jumping from this to this and you're like, oh, but I'm getting this done. It's like, no, you're getting part of this done and then you're going to the next thing. So when we're doing that, because we've been conditioned to do that for so long, like, how do we recenter ourselves? Like, how do we get ourselves back to that monotasking instead of that task switching?
So I have, there's some tips I have. So the first one is creating a mindfulness practice for when you start your workday, whether that's at home or in the workplace. And what you can do is, I call it the rules of 10. So moving, breathing, journaling. Those are the three things: moving, breathing, journaling. So 10 minutes before you start work, you can journal about, how do I feel right now? What's happening right now? What am I thinking right now? Just a complete brain dump, no punctuation worries, no spelling worries. Breathe 10 times. You can just do one of these. Breathe 10 times. Just sit there like we did at the beginning of this. Breathe 10 times, then start your day. And you can get up. You can get up from where you're sitting, but you can move a little, stretch a little, walk around your house a little, walk around the outside of your house. Just move your body for 5 or 10 minutes before you sit down to work. So that's a great way to start. The second thing I really like is, everybody has 5 minutes an hour to take care of their mental health, their physical health, their emotional health. So work for those 55 minutes, pause, and take 5 minutes to do one of those things: move, breathe, journal. Just pause, notice how you're doing, give yourself what you need. That's another thing. And now I want everyone to just take a big breath, because this one's hard. And I did this yesterday on purpose because I knew I was going to say this today, and I survived. I'm going to suggest you take your phone and you keep it in your car. And for everyone who just thought, hey, I work from home, I don't have to do this, you actually can walk to your car and put your phone in the car. So you're not off the hook. I did do this yesterday. I survived. I'm here. The world didn't come to an end, nor did anybody else's world. The phone is one of the biggest practices of distraction that we have at work and in our lives. It is a literally a practice of distraction, and you want to start to practice the opposite, which is focus. Put it in the car, and your 55 minutes, on your 5 minutes, your treats, walk out the car and see what's happened. Look, leave it, come back, right? And you can start small. Try it once and see what happens. That would be a great thing. Some smaller things you can do, clear your desk of everything except the one thing you're working on. Just do that. You can also, I think this is really important. At the end of the day, take 10 minutes. You can add this to your rule of 10. Take 10 minutes to write what you need to do the next day. You don't have to make a perfect list, but dump down everything that you know you didn't finish today that needs to happen tomorrow. So you're not holding it in your brain while you're sleeping and while you're trying to function and see your friends and family, whatever else you might be doing, because your brain is still thinking whether or not you're aware of it. So just write it down, end of the day. That's a really important one. I'm curious, I know people said they felt a little bit overwhelmed. I'm wondering if everyone is still feeling a little overwhelmed, like, oh my God, more to do, more happening here. Take a breath if you are, just take a breath. And I'm just gonna add one more thing here. Do we have time, Allison? One more tip?
Yeah, we'll do one more.
Okay.
We'll move on.
It's something called MITs, and you can Google that if you want, but it's most important tasks. And when you write that whole list of 500 things you need to do that day, pick the top 3 that really, truly, absolutely have to get done. And when you get those 3 things done, then you can call it a day. Like that's, you've done it, you've got it, you know, A+, you can go on. But you can try that as well. So I like that tip too.
Thank you so much. Those are such great tips, and I'm sure you have tons more. You guys should definitely check out Elizabeth. But let's get a conversation going at this point. We're going to be moving into smaller groups. These will not be recorded, so be as open as you're comfortable being. We're going to spend about 15 minutes and give us a more intimate opportunity to engage, network, and talk about this topic. We're going to have you answer 4 different questions, and then each group will have a recapper for when we come back to kind of let us know what you guys talked about. Welcome back, everybody. How are those conversations?
Great.
Good. All right. So I'd love to jump around and get like a 1-minute debrief from all the different groups. I'm gonna call on the first moderator I see, Colette.
Hi. I had a great discussion, and we were lucky that we had Elizabeth in our group, the expert. And it was, we didn't get to all our questions that we had pre-planned because the discussion got so good. How do we stay up, be mindful during the workday? The moving, the breathing. And then the other question we touched upon was, how do we manage mindfulness up to our supervisors? And Elizabeth had a great idea. It's like, well, why don't you share our experience here at the DLE, going like, hey, boss, Monday morning, walk in. I was part of this great mindfulness thing at work. There's some articles that we can share, with you, like, take a look, see what you think about it. It's like perfect, because I think we've realized that the American culture, we value productivity with our own self-value, and that's just not how it can happen in our lives. We can't, multitasking is definitely a myth, and we can't happen. So why don't we just bring it up to supervisors to create a better environment, and then slowly kind of build up from the blocks. Your boss might go to their boss saying, hey, we'd be trying to sing with our team. Can we make it more, broader into the whole department, or kind of scale up from there? So those are the biggest things. We couldn't get into the other ones because we just kind of dove into those ones, but I think there's a lot more to chat, and yeah, those are our discussions.
I'll jump in about our group because it kind of goes off that same thing. We spent a little bit of time talking about COVID and how at the beginning of COVID, we had all of this grace to, of course you're going to be late for a meeting. You have to get your kid on their Zoom classroom. And now as things kind of go back to normal, we're not really seeing that grace anymore. And so how to own that time again and own your space and make sure that you have that time to be productive. So I'm going to jump to Crystal, if you want to give a quick debrief.
Absolutely. Well, John, Suzette, Merle, and I had a really great conversation. And same thing, we didn't get through all the questions because I think we really talked about one question and then just kept going because we had just had such a good conversation. We talked about a couple different techniques that folks in the group were using. So taking a lunch and getting away from their desk and making sure to do that in the middle of the day every day just to have that moment for themselves was a big one. Another one that was interesting and I really liked was setting an alarm when you know you have to do things, so then you can focus on up until that point. You're not thinking about when that's going to happen because you know you have the alarm set and you can really just focus during that time. So I thought that was a really cool technique. And we also talked about scheduling time on your calendar. It doesn't have to just be for meetings. It can also be for yourself. And Suzette said something great. It's not personal time, it's work time, but you're managing your calendar for yourself so that you can better work through your productivity of the day. And I thought that was a really great technique. Learning how to say no when people schedule over that time that you've blocked out for yourself is the part that I haven't figured out yet, but is an important part to keep working at because your calendar needs to work for you. And then John said we need to limit Merle said we need to limit our input to improve our output. I think I got that right. And I really liked that quote. So hopefully I captured.
Great, thank you so much. And Kate, do you want to share out for your group?
Sure. We wound up in starting with the thought that you offered in the tips about focus, about practicing focusing and talking about how we were identifying or the challenges in identifying what is really important. What are the challenges in focusing first? And some of that has to do with what is external pressure. When someone is asking you for a lot of, or different people are asking you for a lot of different things. And how do you decide this is what I really need to do right now? And this is what might wait till tomorrow. And some of it can be internal pressure that people are asking me to do this. And I want to be professional, I want to be helpful and how to balance the sense that, I need time. And we definitely talked about that sort of, getting up, taking a break, and how do you balance I need time to focus with getting up periodically. We talked about different ways to focus and what we find helpful in focusing, both in keeping us from being distracted, and then we talked some about what tends to distract us and how we might be able to move away from that, but also in how we're focusing, how we're thinking in order to focus better.
Yeah. I love that conversation. When Elizabeth and I were preparing for this, one thing that Elizabeth said often was like, I just want to name this. Like, that's the first step you have to take is like, how am I feeling right now? If you're finding you're running into those issues, like what is the core of that issue? Like you have to name it, you have to figure that piece out before you can fix anything. So I really appreciate that conversation. Did I miss any of our groups? Nobody's jumping up? Okay, awesome. So I have two last questions for you, Elizabeth. And the first is, in your group, did you notice anything that you really, really want to make sure we spotlight? And second is, when none of our coping mechanisms are working, or any of our mindfulness tricks, like how do you forgive yourself? How do you keep moving forward from there?
Yeah, those are both great questions. It was such a great conversation. I think a couple of things that stick out for me, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, but how productive the person is doing all these things at work and they're getting, all this stuff happening. And at the end of the day, they don't feel productive. And I said, that's because if you're multitasking, you're not focusing and your system doesn't record that you did all those things. So you get to the end of the day and you're completely drained and exhausted and you don't feel good about yourself. So it's just a really unhealthy cycle. I thought that was really interesting. And then lowering expectations in terms of, not expecting yourself to be a multitasking machine, and that there's something in our culture, maybe in that particular person's work culture, that productivity equals my value as a person. And trying to step away from that, trying to step away from that connection that's really not a healthy connection. We are so much more than what we do. We are actually who we are. And what we do is a part of that. So I thought that was really great. And then one person who we were talking about what we do personally to have mindfulness in our day. They stop and pet their cat. They take time for their pet. That is a real thing. That is something that is really calming for your nervous system. And you have that moment of connection and focus. It's really, really powerful. So you can do that kind of thing as well. And then we did talk about COVID and a lot of challenges there. One I brought up was that we can now have meetings back to back, which we never could before. There was transition time. And someone mentioned that, that is really hard for them. There's no 5 minutes between to walk down the hall to the next thing, or a drive where you can kind of decompress and be in your own space, and trying to move some kind of balance back into that process. Yeah. And then I think, should I move on to the next question, Allison? Yeah. So I hope that you can just really take this as a heartfelt thing. Every single person who's on this call, we have been through so much in the last 2 years. We are still going through so much. You are here, you are working, you have figured out something, and it's amazing. And there are obviously going to be days, spoiler alert, many days where nothing works, right? Nothing works. And you can still pause and say, nothing's working and I'm okay. Right now in this moment, I'm okay. And you can then find maybe some words to appreciate yourself. And I would love that, if nothing else, if everyone takes one breath and just appreciate something about yourself right now. We have been through an unprecedented time and we're still in it. And we have a lot to do to recover from it. So just love yourself, be kind to yourself.
Thank you so much. And Crystal is actually the catalyst for this culture chat. And just shared a link to a really great podcast, and we like to listen to it. Elizabeth, was there anything, we still have about 4 minutes, was there anything that we missed that we want to recap on?
The one thing, I'll just reiterate, was about talking to a supervisor. I think you have a couple of articles, Allison, you can drop in the chat that people can offer to supervisors. That's probably a useful tool. And in terms of, given that COVID is something we're all still balancing and trying to manage, anything you can do for yourself in terms of noticing what would work for you in terms of shifting back, to the hybrid workspace, home and going in, or just what you need personally. Once you know that, if you can find a way to bring it up to somebody who can listen to you about that, because it may take one brave soul to say, you know what, we have all been through something and we need to just be aware that there's a process to come out of it as well. And can we make that more, name it, like you said, name that process, name that we need this, and bring that up. And maybe the multitasking or the monotasking can be part of that. Less meetings, less running around. Can we just pretend that we have to get 10 minutes from one to the next meeting? Can we just pretend that people have to walk? And maybe there'll be a natural process if there's a hybrid, situations happening. But right now it's a transition process. So be kind to yourself about it and being brave, change happens one person at a time. If it wasn't hard, the whole world would look very different right now, in my opinion. So be the brave soul who just steps out there and take a breath and be vulnerable and give it a shot, because that's how things will change. And you've started, you came here today, so you've already started.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. This has been awesome. We'll give you a little round of applause. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Reach out, you guys, if you want to talk or whatever, just feel free to reach out.
Amazing. I'm now going to pass off the totem to Linda, who will take us through the last few minutes of our program.
Yep, just a few closing thoughts. So first of all, Elizabeth, I did a true reveal in our group. I did a science experiment, which is very hard for me. I'm not a scientist, right? The last 2 days, but preparing for this. And I was in my office downtown yesterday, and I noticed that my inability to take 5-minute conscious breaks rose exponentially. I didn't do it. I didn't move. I could sit for 2-3 hours and I wasn't moving from my desk. And while I'm in my home office where I am right now, I very easily can build in 5 minutes. I do have animals, so that I think is a big support system to me, but I just mentally think about it more here than in my office. So logistics actually influence my multitasking as well. So people may want to think about that if there's a room or something, if they're working from home or wherever, that maybe surroundings need to get changed up and experiment a little bit with that. But this was a great program. It was such a right on topic, again, fueled by our team and also from polls that we conduct. And we realize, we're monitoring the trends out there and want to respond. Thank you, everyone, because everyone was really enthusiastic in their participation. Elizabeth, you gave so much prep to this, and we are truly grateful.